All right, let's get to some callers. The first caller we're going to bring up is In My Opinion. In My Opinion, what's going on?
Hi, Kempire. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm blessed by the best.
Amen.
Let me tell you, the part where we get like 3 minutes for colorism is baffling to me because of the simple fact that you didn't think enough of the situation to give it its own 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, to resolve it. You didn't think enough of it to hire a moderator that could handle the situation the right way. Because even Candace herself said she really didn't know the definition, so she was looking it up. So, in my opinion, they needed somebody there that knew what colorism was because it is a wide. You can't just look at the dictionary form and then form an opinion because it is wide.
Yeah.
The way it affects you is wide.
Yeah.
So the fact that nobody took the time to realize that nobody in production took the time to understand what it is that we go through being darker.
Mhm.
Even Karen touching on that she stayed on a plantation, it didn't even go deeper. You know what I'm saying? Like it's more than just her staying on a
Yeah.
plantation or darker skinned women being the ones that had to work harder than the light skinned ones that had to go in the house. It was more deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like we putting it in a bubble of back in the day, but that definition has
Mm.
increased because of the times that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Colorism is bigger and it's being shown on a lot of shows and nobody's talking about it. So
Yeah.
what are we teaching our kids to look out for? How are we going to teach them not to be the colorists that they showing up on these TV screens if we never put in a time to actually go through it and tell people what it is?
Yeah, and that this is continues to be perpetuated without it really having a conversation. And I think a moderator with, and this is why some people thought the moderator should be, oh, this popular person or this pop. No, we need someone that knows this stuff, that studies this stuff, and understands
Exactly.
how
It
this.
should have been a doctor or a therapist that actually works on people that suffer from this condition because it actually affects people sometimes.
Mm,
Being in that condition where they are around either white women or lighter skin tone black women, that they're being treated differently and they feel like they can't elevate even in their careers, like in the workplace. It's happening in every workplace, not just on national TV.
oh
And that
yeah,
was the reason why it was a bigger issue, but nobody's tackling it, nobody's handling it the right way. So how are we going to expect change when we're not even accepting the fact that, hey, it needs to be a change?
yeah. All right. In my opinion, I can't even speak. In my opinion, thank you so much for calling in.
You have a blessed day.
You too. Bye. All right, we're gonna bring up Judgy Justice next. What's going on, Judgy Justice?
Hey, so I think overall I was really disappointed in like the reunion. I had to like sit with myself and really like decompress from it just because I was so bothered.
Mm,
Um, I'm not like the darkest person in the room. I'm very like, in the middle. And I know that what I've experienced because I've been in, rooms where someone's like, looking at something and I've been telling them, oh, it's right here, this and this. And I've been ignored by all of my white colleagues.
mm,
So I know exactly how that feels. And I feel that, it's very hurtful for them to not to only have it wrapped down to 120 seconds.
mm.
Um, that and this is a disgrace to not only the people that still endure this colorism right now, and it's also insulting for those that are going to still face it tomorrow and in the future, because I think about my children and what they're going to face.
Mm.
And and they're not that brown, they're not that dark, but I know what I've endured, and I
But
know
what?
that.
Here's the thing: it doesn't even matter because you see someone like Giselle. No, you want, even if you have a light skinned child, to understand what colorism is, especially
Yeah,
if they're as they show up in the world as someone that is of fairer skin.
exactly. So then, and then to also, I feel it's very disgraceful for Giselle to be there, having that, background in their family who fought for everyone. And they didn't just fight for one pigment or the other, they fought for all of us to have that,
Mm,
have these rights today. Is
mm-hmm,
insult to our whole ancestral line.
mm-hmm,
And and it's insulting to everyone in the world that is going through that, because it happens in South America, and the genocides that happened against people, brown, complexion. It happens in India with the caste system.
Yep.
It happens right now. It also happens in Asia, where there's people that wear those big hats because they do not want to even be of a darker pigmentation, because what that's associated with. Because when you realize that it was spread based in that, um, white is right kind of complex, and how it spread across the globe into all systems, in all societies, of all aspects, where some people can't even get a job outside of their family, you know, um, their family's job. I'm trying to be fast. I can't think of the right word. They can't get a job outside of that because of the association that you can't do this. There's doctors in Canada right now that, they have patients that come into the ER and that are black, and because they are black, those patients would rather die than to have a black person or someone of color to work on them.
Yeah.
I really feel it's insulting. I'm reevaluating like my thoughts on like the whole Housewives brand, just personal digestion, because I didn't think it would affect me this badly. Really reflect. So it makes me think about how I'm like supporting even the fact that I watched it. I'm supporting this message, and how can I make an impact? So I thank you so much for the time.
Okay.
About that. That was really my thoughts on it.
Thank you so much for calling in, Judge Justice. All right, Phoenix, I'm going to bring you up next. What's going on, Phoenix?
Hey, how's the audio?
Great. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Just so first things first, I was insulted with the colorism conversation because it was so brief, but I also did not think that it was fair to have it all go on Candace. I do think that it's unfair to have it go on the two individuals that are darker skinned to kind of like carry this weight. Like, I think that that's something that happens really often. The people that are the most afflicted by something seem to be the ones that have to then do the labor to explain it. And so I didn't think that that was fair. I would think that it's really shocking that so many of them voted to not have the moderator. I believe that Candace tweeted and said she was the only one that wanted the moderator. And that's why they kind of decided to have her talk. I think it would have been better potentially to have Wendy speak on it. I think that Wendy probably could have defined colorism without having to pull out her phone. I thought that that was a little ridiculous, and I could just be nitpicking, but I mean, it is something serious. And if you're saying that it's something that afflicts you on the regular, I don't get why you have to pull out your phone and read a definition online.
Well, I also, in all fairness, she probably wanted to separate her personal definition and say, this is what is defined.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, I'm sure that makes sense, actually, because then it's like more straightforward. It's not kind of like, it's not personalized. So then I think what it is, which made me really sad, is that she had to depersonalize it for it to be taken seriously. And even then it wasn't taken seriously, but I feel that she had to, because I was asking myself, why would she say nobody on the cast is colors? Well, why are we having this damn conversation? But I kind of thought back to like what we have to deal with a lot of times as Black women, as Black people, is we're not allowed to actually say how we feel because we're going to lose a bunch of people. So maybe she felt if she came out the gate saying, yes, Robin and Giselle, I think you're colorist. Here's why. Maybe they just would have stopped paying attention. And so maybe she felt, let me give them the grace of saying they're not colorist because I don't think that they intend it. But this is how I feel. But unfortunately, even though she did that, even though in a lot of ways I feel that she coddled them through the conversation, it was still not appreciated. And I think that there are three reasons. First of all, just ignorance. And why would people like Robin and Giselle, why would they actually admit their privilege with colorism? Because that would only take away from the benefits that they and how they live, right? They get to live this carefree life and not think about colorism. So why would they want to think about it if it benefits them directly? So that's the first thing. It's willful ignorance. Because they're able to keep their position of power in these dynamics, especially in dynamics with other women, not just because of the color of their skin, but because they are almost nearly white passing and have lighter eyes, right? And I think that's another thing to note too. But the second thing that I think is that because they all have children with, well, not Ashley, but Giselle and Robin have children with men that are darker than them and they have children that are darker than them, I think that they think that that means that they can't be colorist. And I think that they have
Mm.
a hard time understanding accusations of colorism when it's coming from somebody who is married to a white man. Now, I'm not saying that this is my opinion. I'm not saying that I don't think that Candace can speak on colorism. I'm just saying we have to think about how these women their they're very old school, right? And they categorize and define women based off of the man that they're with. And so they probably think, well, I had kids with the darkest skinned man. You're having kids with a white man. How can you tell me what my preference is for this or that? I'm sure that's what they're thinking. Did they say it out loud? No. I
Mm.
think the other thing, too, the third thing that is keeping them from really understanding the colorism conversation is that both Wendy and Candace, even though they are darker skinned, have other privileges. And I think that they bring up those privileges quite often to act as if they are better than the other women. So I think that's another reason, too. Not defending Giselle, not defending Robin. I think that they're colorist more so than anybody else in the cast, more so than on any franchise. But I will say that when people kind of oppose this conversation on colorism, it's not just to silence Wendy and Candace. It's to say, well, Wendy, you have all of these degrees. And color and shade of color leads to different status in society. But also, the degrees that you have lead to different status in society. Being able to have those degrees, even though you are a dark skinned Black woman and probably had to work harder for them than somebody who's white or lighter skinned, at the end of the day, those degrees afford you certain privileges that, in some ways, remove you from some of what the Black experience is. And that's the same thing as Candace coming from such a wealthy family. I think that that's why they're not understanding the colorism thing because they already see the immense privilege that Candace has. So a lot of times people,
So
I
you
think,
just
have a
confirmed for
hard
me,
time
Phoenix.
understanding what privilege means.
Phoenix. I got to cut you off. I'm sorry, just because we have to get to other calls. But what the point that you're making for me here is exactly why they needed a moderator. As Phoenix was saying, for me was literally why exactly they needed a moderator, because this conversation, of course, it's not going to be, even if they had a whole hour talking about colorism, is not necessarily going to get to the nitty gritty of what's happening on the show and what's happening in our society when it comes to colorism. So I think it's really, really important why we needed a moderator. And to put this on the cast to make that decision as a organization, to me, was irresponsible. Just saying, but I'm not completely shocked. What's going on, Janelle?
Bonjour, bonjour. Hello, Kempire.
How are
How
you?
are you, darling?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm happy. Well, I ain't that happy about this reunion, but I'm happy in general. Hello. All right, so let me keep it cute and short. Because a lot of people have already said a lot what I wanted to say. So yay. Um I am entirely and completely disappointed in that colorism conversation. Um, because and also and this is the part that really got me. And I don't cry during reunions unless it calls for it. But and as a dark skinned woman myself, when Wendy started crying, I
Oh,
felt that pain.
yeah.
I felt that pain. I knew exactly how she felt when it's one thing where you're speaking your truth and you're defending yourself and then no one defends you. No, it's it's like someone said this to me. I think my parents said it to me recently. It's one thing to stand up for yourself. It's another thing to stand up for yourself and then having a group of people support you.
Mm.
And nobody was there to support Wendy in that moment. And Candace, I love you. Sometimes you say stuff on the show. I'm like, "Ooh, girl, let me hide." But like that, like sometimes I wonder if Candace is wondering. It's like who to appease, and I understand that she
Mm.
has a certain level of loyalty to Robin. I understand that, but your girl Wendy out here, like, hey, hey, help me out. This is a problem. And the
Mm.
thing is that, and I just feel this, and I know this as a learned experience. There's
Mm.
sometimes when you're darker skinned, and this all the way goes back to colonization, it goes back to slavery, is that if you are darker skinned, no, then all of a sudden you don't have feelings. All of a sudden you
Mm.
don't know how to, and that is rooted in slavery.
Yeah.
There are, like, if people want to question in the chat, then boo boo, go Google it, and you'll see that I'm right. The thing is that it's the same thing to how, like, when we're in the hospital, what another caller said, like, I think Judge
Yeah.
Justice said, like, when you
Mm-hmm.
go into the hospital and you're saying how, like, oh, I'm in pain, but they don't believe you.
Mm-hmm. There's literal research, medical research on Black people's experience when it comes to the doctors and where that is rooted in as well.
Exactly. And the thing is that Wendy's feelings are just as valid as everyone else's. And I agree with you. And I agree with Phoenix, I believe, about there should have been a moderator. And also, this goes back to, and I was thinking this because I can't say much, but I've gone through a similar situation at a past job. I am curious to know if there are any people of color, primarily a Black person, in leadership at Bravo. I'm
That's a
real
good
curious.
question. And you're talking about Bravo and not the production company.
Correct. I am not talking about the production company because let's keep it all the way funky. Yes, Real Housewives of Orange County may have jump started the Real Housewife franchise, but Atlanta was the one who put Bravo truly on the map.
The ratings, the numbers prove that.
Hello. And Atlanta was the #1 rated series. I don't know if it still is, but it was for multiple seasons, more than 10. So my question is, where is that Black leadership at Bravo? And is there a concerted effort to have Black leadership at Bravo so these problems don't have to continuously be happening? Because, and this is my last I'm gonna say on so other callers can talk. Because I thought back to Marvel. And people are wondering why Black Panther took so long to be created. It didn't happen until Nate Moore, a Black executive, got hired at Marvel back in 20 and not back in 2013, but it was in 2013. He was like, let's get this thing off and popping. Because he saw Ryan
And now
right? And he said, because he saw Ryan Coogler's Fruitvale Station and was like, I want this man to direct Black Panther. So let's keep it all the way funky. It wasn't happening until a Black executive got in that room and got the eyes of Kevin Feige and was like, we need to make this. So where is this Black leadership at Bravo? Because I'm sorry, I love Bravo. I love Real Housewives. It's my escape from the world, but I'm getting mad. I'm getting very upset with the way they be doing things. It's just like, are you kidding me? 5 minutes?
Yeah.
For a topic on colorism?
Yeah.
And then you got Jizzy Jizz over here acting the fool? So fire Robin, demote Giselle. I said it. Okay, bye. I have to, yeah, I had, that's my opinion. Y'all can fight me later. Well, please don't fight me. I'm a lover.
Bye,
Anyway.
Giselle.
All right, I'll talk to you later. And go eat something, Kempire.
I'll try. What's going on, Tiana? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm going to be really, really quick.
Okay.
I think that, one, there should have been a moderator, but I think that Andy needs to stop trying to be their friend. He needs to be their boss. Because I would not have called these women and been like, hey, how do you want to address the issue? And then if you only have one person, Candace, who's asking for a moderator, and you have all the other perpetrators besides Wendy and Karen who are like, no, you can just go ahead and handle it, that should tell you something.
No.
So I wouldn't have called them, and I would have had Amanda Seales pop up on that Bravo stage.
Come on. No, I keep telling you guys, I do not want someone that is already, a person that's, a popular person. And the reason why is because we love Amanda Seales, and I do believe she does the work and she reads. However, I want someone that researches this, that covers this. This is their job.
Like, I want an author of all of the Black books. Somebody,
not all the Black. Come on, all the Black books.
Like someone who really knows and who can push back, because I know that everyone's upset that the conversation was so short, but I really think that because there was no moderator, I think that what we saw was all the conversation that was had. Because I don't believe that Giselle and Robin really have the reach. And like I said, it wasn't, I think a previous caller had said, it wasn't fair to Candace to put all that on her shoulders. But I don't think that they have the depth to even really have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
And so I think the 3 minutes that we saw, I bet you there was probably maybe 5 minutes of footage. And I think that that's really what it was, because there was no moderator. So I appreciate Andy. Like, I'm sure that he saw all of our tweets when we said, you ain't the one to be having this conversation. And so I appreciate, in a way, him like, no, I shouldn't have this conversation. I shouldn't be the one. But he needs to stop trying to be their friend, and he needs to be their boss. Ooh. And he needs to say, hey, forget your feelings. This is what we're doing. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to come back. But one last thing. I know that Giselle, over the years, has been a nasty person. But her behavior last night was probably some of the, like, I looked at her and I felt like a sense of disgust. Because I was like, how dare you sit here and say to Wendy that you don't care when Andy was telling her, oh, you don't, she felt violated, you felt violated. And for her to sit there and say, well, I don't care about her or I don't like her. So why would I care? That's probably the most disgusting. If Giselle had a job, we'd be trying to get her fired from her job if it wasn't Bravo. Because that was disgusting. And for Andy to not kind of push back on that kind of like had me feeling some type of way. For me to sit here and say that Wendy had slept with Peter, and for no one to push back on that, just with no receipt. Like, so we're just letting me a lie with no receipts, and no one's saying anything. And so I was disappointed. I was disappointed because it's just like I think Andy tries so hard to be these women's friends, and he's no longer equipped to handle hosting the reunion.
Yeah. All right, Tiana, thank you so much for calling in.
Okay, you guys have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Hey, Kempire, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. If they're not going to bring in Cornel West and Iyanla Van Zant, I don't want to talk about colorism anymore because that show just proved that they don't care.
Mm.
And for Giselle to be sitting up there like she got permanent gas was getting on my last nerve. With her facial expression.
Come on.
Like she, the lady don't know what an embryo is. I don't need to say anything else about Giselle. And for her to sit up there and point to Wendy, I don't like her. So she's justified to get the treatment that she got this season. Because I don't like her. The reason you don't like her is that she didn't go for your bullying her. She didn't go for you blast her husband's name and saying he's sleeping with other women.
Yeah.
And when they told you what you're doing is affecting my kids, you didn't have decency to come back and say, well, I took it too far. I don't like her. That's on you. That's not on Wendy. Other than that, it was a waste of time. I'm not looking forward to next week. The only reason I want to see Chris defend himself, that's the only good thing. But all that robbing and all that intel about her and this line and you covering up for your marriage for your husband, you love it. I like it, but it's a waste of time.
Yeah. All right, Miss Bernie. Thank you for calling in.
Other than that, go eat your food.
Thank you. Bye. I gotta make my food first. But let's get to some more of these callers, guys. Let me just say thank you first, though. Real Talk 2, thank you for the super chat. Real Talk 2 says, limiting ethics, safety, equity, and the law because you don't like someone is the root of racism, bigotry, and colorism. Bravo pays Giselle and maintains her employ and therefore is also responsible. Come on with a word. Come on with a word. Look, and going back to what one of the callers just said, if one of the cast says, yes, we should have a moderator, that should have been it. If all of them said no, that would have been one thing. If one person says yes, you should have immediately. But again, I would have had the conversation with them, but as employers, it's your responsibility to make that decision. Not just the cast, because you're not only responsible for the cast, you're responsible for what you are putting on national television for your majority Black audience. Adrian, I'm going to bring you up next. What's going on, Adrian?
Hey, love, how can you hear me?
Yes. What's going on?
Okay, good. So I just felt like I was absolutely disgusted watching this last night. Colorism is an absolute vestige of white supremacy. That's why we see it permeated through cultures wherever colonialism went. But I think it was a missed opportunity to discuss the real elephant in the room with this group, which is why Giselle, Robert, and Ashley have such a problem with darker skinned women living a life that's better than them. They have a particular problem with that. It's giving that those dark skinned women don't deserve to have the life that they live. They don't deserve to have the money, the husband, the loving husband, the career, the family, the millions, the status, and whatnot. And it's like they feel like, and I know that they've been told, you can tell the way that they act, especially with Giselle, that this is a life that your light skin and green eyes was just supposed to automatically afford you. Hashtag soft life. And they don't have that, and they can't stand these darker skinned women do have it. Because we all watched Giselle's face crack in real time when Monique told her she had 4 houses. She couldn't stand her from that point forward. With Ashley and Candace, Ashley, her whole issue with Candace that this dark skinned girl had the audacity to grow up with a glamorous life behind a country club, not struggling, while your mother was living up under a tent in a bridge with a white man. And Candace, you said that you were going to make sure that your sons were set up well, but you clown Candace for her parents doing the same thing. And then also, wouldn't Ray and Karen do the same for Raven? You mean to tell me when Raven go to buy her first house, they not gonna make sure every I dotted and T is crossed to make sure that girl got everything she needs? Would you clown her for that? Didn't Candace and Raven grow up the same way with affluent parents? Make it make sense. Seriously. And
Mm.
then and also with the whole thing about the way people grew up, isn't Giselle always running around talking about her pedigree? Isn't Robin's father a retired dentist? So you all also grew up with some sort of affluence, but you have a problem with the fact that a dark-skinned girl had the audacity to grow up that way. It's giving the fact that we don't want her, she doesn't deserve it. That is
Mm.
very, very deep rooted. Because then when also Giselle said that Wendy was jealous of me, I remember when they was in Mexico, jealous of what? What in the world does Wendy and all her accolades have to be jealous of a former stripper who admitted to sleeping with another one's husband on at South Beach and then got thrown into the position she wasn't qualified for and almost ran the company into the ground? What in the world is Wendy gonna be unless Giselle feels like light skin is something to envy? Let's
Mm.
talk about it. This is why the conversation was missed. This is why you needed somebody a la Iyanla Vanzant or some black woman that was gonna get up there and tell the truth,
Mm.
and they missed it because. And I want to know, with the beautiful brown skinned daughters that took after their daddy, what are you going to tell them? What are you going to tell them about sisterhood when you sat there and treated your own dark skinned soror like crap on national television? And you keep moving the goalposts with no moral compass about what is right and is not wrong, right and wrong, based on the shade of brown in a woman that you're dealing with. Then all of a sudden you want to change the rules. And lastly, and to Ms. Bernice's point, Giselle is mad that a dark skinned woman had the audacity to bark back at her. That's what she's upset about with Wendy. You
Mm.
can't explain it no other way.
Mm.
And and lastly, let me point this out. I am a light skinned woman. All right. I've done my own family history. I know exactly how much European blood I have. And more importantly, I know how it got there. And I don't understand why these women run around like that's some type of badge of honor.
Mm.
Because one of my ancestors had to sit there and get violated night after night after night, and that this is not Loving versus Virginia. This was not a beautiful love. This ain't a Chris and Candace type of union. That's not what that was. That's not why most of us look the way that we look. And you're sitting up there acting like that proximity and whiteness is something you're supposed to run around carrying over somebody. That somehow, if they don't have that, if they didn't get that European blood, then they're less than you. They completely missed the opportunity to talk about the real here.
Mm.
Seriously, look at that. Ashley's father treated Sheila just like a daggone slave. He slammed the door in that girl's face because he didn't want to acknowledge that he had a black child. And this girl's running around here craving whiteness like that. That is deeply rooted. And so, yeah, Andy's going to sit back and say, hey, I'm a white man. I don't have the capacity. Okay, cool. But you didn't go the step further. I don't care what the girls said that they wanted. You, executive producer, that company should have put together a professional to come in and discuss this.
Yep. That was a responsibility.
Absolutely, as the employers here, but you let the inmates run the asylum.
You know what?
Anyway,
The
let me
inmates.
go. I'll let somebody else talk. Bye,
Thanks,
love. Talk to
Adrian.
you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Woo! We got some of the best callers. Okay. What's going on, Tyler?
Hi, how are you?
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm going to be very brief.
Okay.
Okay, so I think with Giselle, a lot of things that people are forgetting as well is pretty privilege. She suffers from pretty privilege. And I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but if Wendy or anybody else on the cast dressed the way she looks, because what do you always see? They always say face card never declines, though. So she's been able to be privileged. I think that's a portion of why she has an issue with Wendy and them as well, because she's looking like, I'm pretty. I'm supposed to have this lifestyle or whatever like that. I think that she doesn't know that colorism comes along with it as well. She needs to be educated.
Mm.
So I think she also suffers from pretty privilege. Okay, with Candace, it's kind of hard for me to sympathize with Candace sometimes. Being a black, gay, feminine male, and knowing the tweets that she put out and how she was
Mm.
very dismissive about those things, it's kind of like, it's kind of hard for me to be on her side about certain things because I'm like, Candace, you too are bigoted. And a lot of your tweets were very bigoted and you were very dismissive about them when they came out. She was very dismissive about this. She was like, well, I'm not going to join a pride parade and I'm not going to do this and this and that. And I think a lot of people forget about that because she's been reading people that we tend to not like. But Candace has done a lot of horrible things. And it's hard and I think anything that she says, sometimes that's why she gets a lot of pushback as well, because it's like, girl, like you say a lot of horrible things. Like, even I don't like Giselle, but I think it was a little too low to say you're dwindling uterus. Like that was it's Candace's mouth is very foul. To sometimes it feels like some of the things. Not saying it's always warranted, but sometimes I'm like, girl, that's what you get because your mouth, like her mouth is filthy. But last thing, I do not think under any circumstances that Wendy is or will ever be jealous of Mia. However, I do feel as though Wendy has this mentality of I've had to work very hard to get the things that I want, and she looks at women like Ashley and maybe Mia as less than her, because it's like I work hard for this and this and that, and y'all just got this from sleeping with a man. So she has that type of attitude. But hey, you worked hard and you deserve that because you could do it on your own. But I think there's two things battling with each other. But the main thing about Giselle is they need to check her, because she thinks because she is so pretty, and she's a beautiful woman. Do not get me wrong. But she thinks that that's going to get her through the door. And to be honest, Andy caters to that. He's always done that on every show, for the most part, with the exception of Nene. It was her personality. He always caters to the women that he deems the most pretty and keep them like he wants to be accepted. And I think that, did you put up that picture? But I think that's why he does that. He thinks Giselle's that pretty popular girl, so he sits her right next to her and caters to her. That's what it is. But I'm going to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Take care. Kia, thank you so much for the super chat. Kia says they should have had a special segment talking about colorism the same way that they did for Robin and the cheat. Oh, come on. Because we could care less about what Robin has to say about the Juan situation at this point. We would have preferred a half hour talking about the years of colorism, how it's addressed on the show, how it's not addressed on the show. That is much preferred. Thank you, Kia. That is such a good point. A 90-minute episode next week to cover that. What's going on, Tina?
Hey, Kempire, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
As a very melanated woman of the age of 66, I almost was in tears with Wendy last night, because colorism is a global phenomenon. It is just not in the United States. It's everywhere. And it's just really sad that people want to try to shy away from that. Andy should have been off the stage. There should have been a therapist or somebody that has researched this issue. And it's very curious to me. I don't want to keep rehashing what other people have said. Giselle is a light-skinned mom with darker brown daughters. I'm sure her children have been. Is that really your mom? That's a kind of colorist statement, because my sister has biracial children. They always ask my sister in New York, oh, you're the nanny. She said, no, that's my daughter. So it's going to be very interesting when her daughters are confronted with that issue. How is she as a mother going to handle that?
Yeah.
That's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But it's the show. I don't know. They may have to bring Dr. Francis on this show or something.
Dr. Francis. Again, Dr. Francis' expertise is relationships.
Right. Well, they have relationship issues on
well,
show.
Good point. Good point.
On national TV and say, I don't like her. And like Adrian Masora said, that's your sorority sister. Even if you don't like her, you wouldn't say that on national TV.
Damn, it's deep,
huh? Oh, my God. So I don't know. I'm not even sure if I'm going to watch next year, because this show I've watched it since day one, and it has really went down the toilet. It's horrible.
Wow.
But that whole thing that Kia said, have a segment on that. If you're listening, Bravo, you guys need to clean this up, because I'm sure you're going to get a lot of backlash about that segment last night. That was horrible.
Tina, thank you so much for calling.
All right, I'll send you some biscuits.
Thank you. Bye.
Go eat.
Hey, Kempire.
How are you?
let me know when I hit my time limit because I have rambling thoughts going through my head.
Well, you're a member, so
So,
you can just
oh, okay,
go.
okay. I think my feeling is, and I'm a black woman, I just think it's disappointing that black people could speak so freely, and that includes me, of race, racism, discrimination, unconscious bias. You know, for example, my manager told me to come in at 9:30. I noticed my boss came in 9:35. I didn't think it was racism, but I could say that, and some people would agree with me.
Mm.
But when it comes to colorism, the bar is so high
Mm.
to even acknowledge it. And again, like racism, it doesn't mean you hate dark black people. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean we're not all part of the same community. It just means there's unconscious bias.
Mm.
And I think it's okay to say it. And it doesn't even mean that dark skinned black people have such horrible lives and light skinned people are, living their best life. It just means it exists.
Mm.
So I don't get why it's such an issue. The second thing is with Giselle. I know people are saying that she's a granddaughter of civil rights, whatever. And no disrespect to the civil rights movement. They are more colorist than Giselle was. Isn't
Someone
there
else
that
said
thing where
that
they
in the
always,
chat.
yeah, isn't that the thing where they always made like light skinned people and to keep it going? I don't think it's, well, I don't want to accuse anyone's family of anything. So I'll leave it at that. The third thing, I also think is, this is my opinion, why are we holding Andy and the producers and Bravo to this high standard to solve or talk about colorism? The black women on the show did not want to talk about it. The black women on the show didn't want to moderate it. The black woman on the show said, "Thank God this is over," and kept on rolling her eyes every time it was discussed.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, it starts with them, if you ask me.
Okay. All right, Flo Cat. Thank you so much for calling
Okay.
in. Next, what's going on, Miss Esquire? Thoughts on this?
Hi, Kempire. How are you?
You're about to go in, aren't you?
No, I'm just going to first apologize if you hear my kids because
No,
they
it's
are
okay.
actually going in. Much like you as an earth sign, I'm like the same way. I just say what I say in the moment, and I really forget about it after the fact. So I believe you when you say, "Listen, honey, I ain't thought about that since I said it." Um, But so do you remember last season on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion when they asked all the cast members how they would like to deal with talking about the racism that Garcelle's son dealt with? When they asked them how would they like to address that, whether they wanted a moderator, whether they wanted Angie to moderate the conversation. Do you remember them asking that cast that? Because I don't.
No, it didn't happen.
Because I don't. And so that like really rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, we have had very sensitive conversations in the realm of the housewives. We had to talk about domestic violence. We've had to talk about jail and prison time and crimes, and we've had to talk about divorces and infidelity. And all of a sudden, when it comes to a conversation about colorism, let's throw the onus on that onto the cast and let them decide. It is such a dereliction of duty, in my opinion, for the producers to have done that. And to me, it just shows, well, one, the time frame that they dedicated absolutely shows me how much they care about the subject, right? And so that also showed me, because I don't know any situation where if you were dealing with racism that was not interracial, right? There was a white person and a black person, that you would say, hey, we're going to put the onus on the most affected people within this particular circumstance to decide how we're going to deal with it. And then when they decide how they want to deal with it, we're going to have the most marginalized people within that group do the intellectual and the emotional labor, because that sounds damn fair. I just, I couldn't believe that Candace took on the mantle, because I'm like, baby, you don't have to be anybody's emotional donkey, not even these other black women on here. I appreciated that she did it. I thought she did a valiant effort, but honestly, she doesn't have the reach, she doesn't have the range to moderate that kind of conversation, and nor should she have to when she's one of the most marginalized and affected by what has happened. So I just think it was a complete dereliction of duty on Bravo's part. But here's also the thing: colorism showed its face in this process before these women were ever on our cameras, or on camera on our television screens, because it showed in the casting. So of course, Bravo itself is not prepared to deal with a conversation about colorism, because if they were, they would have dealt with it when they casted the show. That's neither here nor there. We're going to move on. And let me tell you something about Giselle. Giselle, if she would have just said, I was made uncomfortable because of the choice I made to be in a room alone with a married man. That is what made me uncomfortable. I chose to be in a room with a married man. That wasn't my intention. And being in a room with him made me uncomfortable. If she had said that, that makes all the difference in the world, because then we get to validate your feelings, and then we don't have to then project accountability onto Chris in a way that's unfair to him. And why she can't bring herself to say the decision I made to be alone in a room with someone else's husband and the ways in which that could be perceived both onto him and onto me, that is what made me uncomfortable. I shouldn't have done that. I wish we hadn't made that decision collectively. And I don't get why she can't see the harm. You know what? I'm giving her too much. She see exactly what she's doing. What am I talking about? Moving on. She has no moral character compass. She has no character. There's no congruency between what she does and what she says. So I don't even know why I'm playing in Giselle Bryant's face. But what I will say is life is a really interesting teacher, and one of the other callers was correct. She has three beautiful girls, three absolutely beautiful brown skinned girls who favor her facially. They do not favor her by complexion.
No.
And their life experience is going to teach her something about colorism that she otherwise has been absolutely defiant and learning. Mia is a lying liar who lies. Like I said, she's a choncleta. She is a flip flopper. I want her off my screen. I'm done with her, because when you got more smoke from Wendy, who you actually harmed, than you have for Giselle, who just accused you of a major crime, I don't know what to do with you, honey. You don't know who your enemy is. And like Candace said, you're not very smart. Um, the thing that did piss me off that Candace did is, it is not your place to say they're not colorists. You can say I don't experience them as colorists towards me, but I think by saying that, she let them off the hook way too early. And these black women have said that every other societal issue that affects black women shows up in their life, right? And they talk about it on this show. All these other things, social justice things that affect them in these small ways and in these mega ways. But we're supposed to believe that this other societal issue does not show up in your life, and therefore does not show up in this show. This show is somehow an ecosystem that protects y'all from colorism, but doesn't protect you from any of the other ills of being a black woman. Play with somebody else. Find you something safe to do. Last thing I will say is, Wendy. I have I've actually, besides Garcelle in the Beverly Hills reunion, where I just felt so bad for how she had to tear her heart out to even have anybody have compassion for her. It was the same way I felt for Wendy last night, because I'm like, this woman is basically having to do heart surgery on herself for y'all to feel an ounce of compassion for her. And that should not be necessary. Giselle can sit up here and play in everybody's face, but she has one moment of pure vulnerability and everybody softens towards her immediately. And this woman has to cry. She has to beg. She has to plead. She has to tear her heart out and show every vulnerability and every scar. And Giselle still had the audacity to sit her in her face and say, I don't care about you because I don't like you. It was one of the most horrible things I've ever seen on reality television. Honestly, I would rather watch Blueface and that girl on Zeus.
Shut up. Come on. No, no. Oh, no. It ain't that bad. Damn.
Baby, I really would. Last, I'm gonna say this, and I'm done. I'm absolutely done. The best part, the most fun part of this reunion has been Robin reading herself via these flashbacks and fast forwards. It has been absolutely wonderful to see her be her own worst enemy, and I actually can't wait for the 30-minute interview because of that. Okay, I will talk to you tomorrow, because Family Karma Wedding was absolutely beautiful. I cried and I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh my goodness. Yes, Miss Esquire. See you tomorrow. Let me just say thank you. DGF, thank you so much for the super chat. DGF says Reese Colbert, Erica Savage, or Lori Daniel Favors of Sirius XM would be excellent moderators. All are well versed in implicit bias and pop culture. All right, DGF. Thank you so much for that information. In my opinion, has a book suggestion. She says Kimberly Jade Norwood, Color Matters, Skin Tone Bias, and the Myth of a Post-Racial America, New Directions in American History is a must read. So I'm going to leave that up for a little bit so you guys can screenshot it, write it down, Google schmoogle it. And if anything, I'll post the link in the description after the live. Alex, I'm going to bring you up next, and then and no promise that I'm going to get to all the callers, but I'm going to put a timer on. Alex, go. Hey.
So I want to get a little more serious than I usually am. So I'm going to segue from Robin to the colorism part of the show, of this reunion.
Okay.
So starting with Robin, she is so hypocritical, and I'm standing by what I said, that in watching her, me and a lot of other people can't handle the hypocrisy, especially just so much hypocrisy in just 2 parts of a reunion, just 2 parts. And also I want to say that when she was saying that that everybody has the right to retaliate however they want, they gave no grace to Monique. And they painted her as this aggressive person, just like they're painting now Candace as this aggressive person. But the person who has had the most altercations on the show is Robin. And it's just coming now that we're realizing that. And I think that also plays into the colorism part of the show, of the dynamics in the show. And I just want to say I'm Mexican and American, so I don't claim and I don't know the experiences of dark-skinned Black men and women. But in the Latino community, for example, blonde-haired Latinas and Latinos are favored over non-blonde-haired or blue-eyed or whatever Latinos in the Spanish entertainment industry. And I am blonde-haired, blue-eyed Latino person. So I acknowledge that I have privilege over those people. And it's sad that we even have privilege over other people in this day and age. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Alex, for sharing that. Thanks for calling in. What's going on, Maya?
Hey, Kempire, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? Did you hear the timer?
Good. Yeah, I heard it.
Okay,
It was
awesome.
a little, yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, I think the colorism segment was just sad to watch, honestly. I think it was way too short. And Giselle, I think it's just they're telling on themselves. You know what I mean? It's like you don't even have to it's just so bad. You know, Giselle, her facial expressions and her challenging Candace and Robin challenging Candace. At least Ashley, she said, I acknowledge that I have privilege and I've had a problem with everybody and it's not because of the color of your skin. At least she acknowledged it. And even Karen, she chimed in and they were at least helpful. Giselle and Robin are they're just the worst. And I just feel like Giselle is ruining the show. It's already becoming so cringy, this show, and so unwatchable. I feel like Bravo needs to stop protecting Giselle. They really need to stop it because they put her on a pedestal and it's really just becoming really bad.
Okay.
And it's just unfortunate, really. I felt for Wendy. I really felt for her.
Maya, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. For those that think a minute is too short, well, if you want me to get to all the calls, here's what can happen. I can just take the next couple of callers and then no one gets a shot. I got things to do too, y'all. I'm not sitting up online. I have work to do myself and a dinner to cook. All right. Asha, I'm going to bring you up next. What's going on, Asha?
Hi, Kempire. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Okay, I'll be really quick because I am kind of sick, but I just have to say, Giselle has to go. Like it's not entertaining for us to watch anymore. And I'm a team Rent a Girl, but everybody wanted Rent to go for the quote unquote same things. Giselle is worse. These embellishing sauce added to things, they're dangerous. And if I were Candace, we would have had to fight, but that's just me. And I really, the colorism section, even in that short period of time, you can tell how seriously Giselle and Robin took it. I mean, these are the same ladies that were laughing at the colorist accusations on the Sherry Shepherd show. How long ago? Not that long ago. It's a joke to them. And so I just hope that Giselle's daughters never have to encounter in their future a woman like her, because it wasn't until I got to college that I really started to feel racism and colorism after I left. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Asha. Take care. Bye. All right. See how we're moving? Y'all? Okay. It's me, MK. I know this name. We're going to bring you up next. What's going on, MK?
Hi there. So my comment was basically about Wendy and her being an African in America, and I'm not starting any diaspora wars people in the comment section. It just made me feel a certain way watching her because as an African, when I came to this country at 12, I experienced something different because back home it's tribalism, right? But coming here and be like, wait, we're all black, you're black, I'm black, but I am being treated less than because I'm African just felt weird. And seeing Wendy open up and cry and say that what they did was effed up, and no one batted an eyelash. No one said, oh my God, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, that kind of was messed up. And part of me just makes it felt like because maybe she was African, in addition to being a dark-skinned African, there's an additional little je ne sais quoi in there. Yeah, an additional bias. And Giselle pointing and reaching across to point at her on the couch to say, well, I don't like her. it was just some extra something that I felt deep in my soul that was messed up.
Hmm.
And Giselle just needs a serious talking to from the executives that, hey, you cannot like someone, but this behavior is non-negotiable.
Wow.
That's it.
Thank you so much. Take care, MK. Do you guys realize why a moderator was necessary for this conversation on colorism? And of course, we understand that 20 minutes, even if they did 30 minutes, it's not going to be the end of this issue of colorism. However, you have a large audience saying that your show is triggering to them because of what's becoming very obvious to a lot of people. Okay. Nell, I'm going to bring you up next. Hold on. Hey, Nell.
Hi.
How are you?
Turn you down in the back. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm doing okay. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do this real fast because I know you gotta eat, and I'm actually eating right now. So
Rub it in.
no, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so one, Giselle. I'm sorry, gotta go. Just I don't even want to get on Giselle, but it is triggering watching the show. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like Giselle, not only is she a colorist, but she's also a mean girl. So for me, Giselle, it's really hard to stomach the TV show with Giselle on it. Like it's very cringy. Like Giselle needs to go. They need to quit catering to her. Robin, like her true colors came out this season to me. Like it for the longest, people have been trying to sort of kind of figure out Robin. Now it's really coming to pass with her, like basically telling on herself. This lady even tried to defend. Oh Lord, there goes the time.
Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Okay, she tried to try to defend like her being wrong, even when it was on camera. Even Ashley tried to defend her friend, even when it was on camera. When it came to Chris, it's like even if the proof is in their face, they still have their mind is made up on the lies that they told.
Yeah.
So that's really all I have to say. And I really felt bad for Wendy. Like that is heart wrenching to see Wendy like be on an island by herself.
Yeah.
That's what Wendy is. She's on an island by herself.
Yeah. Now, thank you so much for calling in. X, what's going on, Simone?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, thank you. I can hear you. Thank you so much for having me on. Look, I want to jump right into it. The definition that Candace read about colorism, while that is a definition that is true, when speaking of the Black community, you also have to remember that featureism and colorism go hand in hand. One's ability to appear European-esque is part of colorism. Many people were saying that Giselle didn't understand. She understood all too well. She simply doesn't have the character to acknowledge her privilege. She is a very European-esque woman, and she doesn't acknowledge that allows her things that it doesn't allow those who don't appear European-esque. She knows, she understands, she's in denial. And denying the truth is different than not knowing the truth.
Oh, okay. Simone, thank you so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate the quality work you put out.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Take care. And she did that in under a minute. Shout out to Simone.
It's Dewan, but that's totally fine.
Oh, sorry.
No,
sorry.
you're fine. I had with the this is a great episode. I still love Potomac, and I'm still gonna watch. Quickly though, my problem with Candace is that she participates in colorism as well actively. I mean, she's called Ashley a house trollop, a bed wench, etc. And that plays into stereotypical tropes about mixed individuals as well. And I just don't think that's acceptable for her to, get on this high horse about colorism, but participate in it the same way. Additionally, it does disappoint me that, she has taken this high horse, particularly in this past season. A lot of the heat has been passed off to Giselle and Robin, rightfully so. But when they showed the flashback, what I thought was interesting was that when Monique was going through everything that she was going through, Candace was in the background just, echoing for Giselle and just advocating for Giselle. And so now the tables are reversed and she's having to live through that. It's a very interesting season. And I think, the dichotomies between race and all of them, dealing with their personal interactions and growth. This has been a great season. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Dewan. Key, I'm going to bring you up next. What's going on, Key? Hold on. Oh, wait, hold on. Ooh, there we go.
So I definitely want to say that I felt like that stage wasn't the right time to actually talk about the colorism issue. I think Bravo is not really known for that, maybe more so OWN. Also, I feel like they should have supported Wendy and acknowledged Candace a whole lot better than they should have, than they did. But also acknowledge the fact that you really can't expect someone to have much sympathy for them if you hurt them deeply with your words. People will remember what you say to them, how that impacts them as well. So I feel like everyone has thrown rocks, but nobody really wants to remember that or take accountability for that and how they may have impacted others and how, they, I guess, like feel. So, remember the impression that you make, and that's pretty much it. So I just hope that things get better. And I don't agree with Robin and Giselle. Their storylines, I feel like they could do better. I feel like they've half-assed this season, so they need to basically do better or replace. And that's it.
All right. Thanks, Keith, for calling in. What's going on, Pritzby?
Hey, Kempire. So real quick, the Wendy situation, how they treated her, just really irated me. It brought me back to the time when they did that to OG on Basketball Wives. And if Bravo doesn't be careful, they're going to end up. Well, Giselle's going to end up like Shawnee, hopefully, because it's teetering. Because I'm seeing a lot of, they move the goalposts. Not saying Candace's mouth. Yeah, I like Candace, but I don't agree with all the things she says. But they have called her out and held her to the fire for stuff she said and did. But then Ashley, Giselle, Robin, they get a little slap on the wrist. Yeah, she does. Her mouth can be a lot, and I get it. But why is she held to a certain standard that they're not? And she brought it up in season 6. So all I have to say is they need to be careful because people are seeing it now. And don't get me wrong, the colorism has been there since season 1 when the whole case began. So that's all I have to say. They need to be careful because people are really going to tone out. And that's it.
Thank you, Pritzby. And I feel as if people have been tuning out because that's one of the consistent comments that I see from a lot of people. And I mean, the ratings still are rating for them, but I've seen a lot of people saying that they just can't watch this cast anymore. It's interesting. Maya, I'm going to bring you up next. What's going on, Maya?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that, Candace, please don't talk about dwindling uteruses when you're currently going through fertility treatments, because if Giselle had an ounce of wit, she could have came back and read you down. So you're lucky that she's slow and didn't. Second of all, I think that Giselle needs to be honest. The fibroid story, every Black woman I know knows someone with fibroids or has them. She could have been open and honest about that and made that her journey instead of tearing down a man who's actually been kind to her. I know she's not used to it, but that was not the move. Robin, you need to worry about the receipts that your husband's name is on and not anything else. I appreciated Karen stepping up and talking about her own personal history with owning the plantation and knowing about colorism intimately. Ashley, I feel like she needs to go to therapy to talk about her father issues and why she basically married her father. And overall, much, much love to Wendy, and I hope she has the support that she needs. That's all.
Thanks, Maya. Take care. Shout out to our King's Guards, guys. If you haven't already, as you can see, we're having a very riveting and long conversation about the Real Housewives of Potomac, but more importantly, conversation on colorism, a lot longer than they did on this reunion. However, we also determine how long we go. They don't. They have advertisers. They have a segment of time. However, they could definitely have done a better job. But anyways, I'm going to bring up Black Healer next. Hold on. What's going on, Black Healer?
Hello.
How are you?
This is my first time calling in, and I'm going to try to stay within the 1 minute. And the only thing I had to say was about the colorism issue. I think it's very important that we define certain terms. And one of the things that is really frustrating to me is that colorism is based in racism. And racism is a part of America. It is the basis on which this country was built. And so when we have these discussions and we don't use the real word, we sort of kind of dilute the conversation. And they could have did much better on it, but I think And I also think I wanted to highlight what Karen said was that these are ingrained, deep biases that we grow up with. Now, I do not get with the whole unconscious because at some point you become woke or you become
When someone points it out, like they've been doing.
yes. So you become conscious. So I don't think everything is unconscious, but I do believe that it is ingrained and we do it out of habit. And you have to be very intentional to break those habits. And it's only one person on that stand, as much as she's hated, and I know my 1 minute has went off. So just give me just
Go
1
ahead.
second.
Just go ahead.
One person on this stand that actually acknowledged her privilege was Ashley. She acknowledged that she's a light skin, she's biracial, and she has a certain privilege. And none of the other ladies, Giselle and Robin, who have a lot of privilege, is able to do it. And maybe they can't at this point in their lives. And if they can't, I feel sorry for their children. But that's it.
Thank you, Black Healer, for calling in.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right. We're going to take one last caller. I love when we have these types of conversations, guys, because I have to say, look, I'm not for everyone, and some other creators are not for everyone. We have our communities. But I have to say, we got one of the best. I'm just saying, come on, our TikTok community, our YouTube community, our Twitter, our Twitch community, our Facebook community, come on. The conversation, I have to say, even if you don't agree with people, and here, we welcome everyone's opinions. Even if you don't agree with me, everyone's going to have a difference of opinion. We have to make it easier and more welcoming for people to have that difference of opinion, especially when we talk about issues of colorism. We don't want to shut people down from sharing their thoughts. And we also have to be willing to hear what people have to say. Amy, I'm going to bring you up. What's going on, Amy?
Hey, you guys are going to be mad at me. I don't think it's colorism. I think colorism plays a part in the casting, but when it comes to the interaction, I just don't see it. And the only reason why is because this girl's name, Wendy and Candace have been very hard on them when they are in these arguments. And you kind of have to hold people accountable on both ends. And Wendy spoke negatively about Giselle's children and Juan, which is okay. But some of the stuff was a little unbearable, as well as Candace talking about uterus and everything else. I think when they're arguing, they don't realize that their words sting to the point where people will hold it against you. And yes, they throw out rumors, but it's a rumor and you combat it by letting it know that it's not true and fighting for your spouse. But the way they go about it is a little daunting, and I support them. But at the end of the day, the accountability is you might lose friends when you're arguing and fighting and you go under the boat. So I feel like with those two, the two friends, the Green Eye Bandits, they hold people accountable in a way that we don't see why, because we look at it for the show to go on and have some harmony in the cast. We should let things go, but some things are a little hard to let go. That's why I look at it.
Okay. All right, Amy. Thank you so much for calling in.
All right. Have a nice one.
You too.
You bring the ladder. I got